Story of what social connection and the physiology side of it. And I'm going to call upon Hillary actually because she has a demonstration very quickly just to get us to move. If you can, please stand up and we just have a quick balance exercise because that is so important for all of us. There you go.
I caught my balance. So I am committed to doing something for balance every day, and I encourage every patient that I see and every one of you to do something for balance every day. It's one of the things that's going to keep you living the longest is if you do that. And so in my functional movement class, my teacher taught me this, which I now teach to my patients. So, which you need a little bit of room to do. So, and if you're doing this at home, you should do it in bare feet because shoes help you with your balance, and we all lose our balance, and as we age, we just lose that part of our nervous system. So you step forward, step over. This is the hard one, right? Step side, step back, step forward, step over, step side, step back. We could be dancing, yes.
And just like that, you all just exercised.
Thank you. It's great. It's always great to get us moving a little bit. So it's wonderful to start hearing about these physiological impacts and the connection between physiology and connection and emotions and mental health. So let's hear from Rebecca. How does being involved in your community help you as you age and as you're dealing with some of these kinds of issues?
In a ton of ways. However, I think the most significant is it gives you a purpose. Some of us who may be thinking of retiring or slowing down, if you don't have something to look forward to, I don't know about you, but for me, sloth begets sloth. So if I hang out in my pajamas all day, I don't really feel that good about myself. And I believe that volunteering in the community, finding an organization that aligns with your interests, and giving back, even if that's passing out donuts is probably not the right thing to say here, celery and carrots, that giving back and doing something that is outward focused, especially where you're doing it in a group of people who have similar interests. We all know what happens. Each of you is going to make a new connection around the table today. And you're going to make a new connection with somebody who has things that are interesting to you. And I don't feel as lonely when I am with people who share my values and my interests. And I don't even really have to be talking. I just know that I am, number one, seen, and number two, heard. And it's my contention that if I am seen and heard, I'm not lonely no matter where I am.
Thank you. That's a powerful thing to think about. Remember, as one of your takeaways, if I'm seen or heard, I'm not going to be lonely. It's great, getting outside of yourself a little bit. I'm going to ask Hillary another question. Why do people not talk about loneliness? Here we're talking about loneliness, but why don't people talk about it or take it more seriously when considering their own mental health?
So we know that social isolation and loneliness are prevalent in our country. In fact, the Surgeon General declared loneliness an epidemic in our country. But people are really conflicted when they talk about mental health for all sorts of reasons, cultural reasons. People don't think of mental health like they do a medical illness, I guess. And so that makes them just more hesitant to talk about it. Some people feel like it's a personal failure if they have a mental health issue. And I think loneliness is more of a societal problem, but depression, that's a medical, chemical issue that is really best dealt with therapy, counseling, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a way of reframing how you see the world and how you react to things, medications that work on neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are the chemicals in our body that help us do everything. That's just use my neurotransmitters. Every thought I have uses my neurotransmitters. If you make these in your nerves and they help you send signals to the next nerve, when you are stressed, you use this up too quickly and your body doesn't have enough time to make more. And so medications help make your neurotransmitters more efficient. And so that's another source of help for mental health.
Thank you. I appreciate the fact that you lifted up the idea of stigma, which is a huge concern, not just in mental health, in many areas in our society, but certainly the idea of that personal failure. I must be weak, I must not be as strong as the person next to me, or in my family, we would never do something like go to therapy. Or talk to another person about how I'm feeling, even something that simple, like to reach out to a person who you are connected with to say, I'm struggling. I think it's interesting that we're starting to see some chipping away at these ideas. For example, on social media and on television in terms of ads about, usually they're ads for medications about depression, but just the idea that we have Michael Phelps out there, who is not an older person, but a very famous person who talks about having experienced depression. Maybe we're going to make a little headway. Do you think we're making any headway towards combating stigma? It's a big problem.
I think it's a big problem. I think people are more open to medications when you explain to them what chemically is going on in their brains, and I think hopefully they're more open to therapy. It is really hard to find mental health professionals, particularly mental health professionals that are on your insurance plan. So much so that actually on each table there are two pages of resources that we use at Austin Regional Clinic that have websites for people's insurance. It's a difficult thing, but now with some online telehealth type things, people are able to get more mental health, I think, more easily, and that's maybe made it more accessible. I don't know if it changed the stigma, but it's at least made it more accessible.
I think that's a really important point, the idea of increasing access to services which can help reduce stigma over time. It's a great segue to my next question for Robin. What's the difference between exercising for physical health and exercising for mental health?
This question made me think, because they are so directly related. And of course, I'm going to play a game with you again. So I'm just going to list out certain things, and I'm going to ask you to respond back. Just say it with your voice and say it out loud. I'm going to list something, you're going to say whether it's mental or physical. Lose weight. I'm going to force you to think physical or mental. Lose weight. Okay, everyone's different. Lower blood pressure. Increase confidence. Reduce anxiety. Yeah. Help my knees and ankles feel better. Fight arthritis, make my arthritis feel better. Yes. So they are so interconnected, and oftentimes when you're working on one, it addresses the other one. And so there is the physical aspect of showing up and getting the exercises done, and again, it's going to create all these with the oxygen pumping to your blood and your brain and your heart. You're going to open up, you're going to feel happier. I don't know if you've ever experienced like runner's high or a high of some sort where you just want to give someone next to you everything and just hug them. Maybe it's your dog or another human being, but so the mental and physical are interrelated, so it's hard to separate the two. And I have another story with this one as well. So as Sarah has shared, I was a supervisor at a older adult independent living home with over 100 residences. In the fitness center, situated on the 9th floor, there was probably about 12 older adults that would attend, and the interns actually, we would knock on each door to say, how are you doing? Can we take your blood pressure? And can we check if there's anything in your house that would put you at risk for falling? So in a sense, we are taking care of their physical well-being, but also that mental ease of like, someone's here to take care of me as well. So yeah, I think they're very directly related.
I love that reach out, the knock on the door as a way to combat loneliness, to increase social connection, and get them to maybe think about coming to an exercise class, because now they have a relationship with that intern, that kind of connection. One of the interesting things that I read about loneliness is that actually if there are minute interactions that you may have during your day that actually impact your level of perceived loneliness. So even when you go to the grocery store, when you go to H-E-B, which we all do, you go to H-E-B and you go to the checkout and you make eye contact with the checker and you chat with them briefly, even if it's about the weather or how crowded the store is or how, no, there wasn't this product I wanted on aisle 9, that impact, even if it's just for a few seconds, actually reduces your perceived sense of loneliness. So don't ever minimize those little mini connections you have during the day. They're important too. I think sometimes it feels a little daunting to think about making a connection. It can feel like a big effort, a big deal. But you have lots of moments during the day where you can feel that sense of connectedness and realize that there are other people out there that can lift your mood a bit. Well, great. All right, I'm going to ask Rebecca another question. So how is the support or help provided by your friends different than the support offered by your family? As we're talking about social connection, to kind of dig into that a little bit.
I have multiple friends. I have one husband. So with multiple friends, I can get multiple perspectives. That's not to say that my husband doesn't have great perspectives, but sometimes if we're facing a challenge, it's nice to talk to people with whom I show up in a different way as a friend and not as a spouse or family. And I was sharing with Sarah yesterday, so I have a list. And I have my friends who are advice givers, and I have my friends who are listeners. And they don't know that they're on this, but I have learned and I think it's just age and gaining a little bit of life wisdom, is that sometimes I just want somebody to listen, and so I know who to call. That has been, and then I feel like I've been heard, right? I've been seen. And typically, if I need advice, I just need to ask my husband, because boys, gentlemen, are really good fixers. And sometimes that's not what we at women look for.
That's a really good point. We have different connections for different purposes. So think about your list. You may have a list of listeners and fixers. And that's an interesting thing to think about. All of those connections, all of those help reduce your sense potentially of loneliness, may increase your mental health in different ways. If you can solve a problem, that can often help you feel more focused and purposive about your life moving forward. It's a good point, Rebecca. I'm going to ask you that third question. We sort of debated it, but we're going to do it, okay? All right, so should mental health care, professional mental health care involving seeing a licensed therapist, seeing a psychiatrist, etc., be used as a preventative measure or only when symptoms show up? And how do you, as a physician, help people figure that out?
Well, I think most people are not going to seek out mental health if they don't have an issue. I think it's hard enough to get them to seek out mental health when they have an issue. But I think if you have an issue, a particular issue that you're dealing with, I think something that is incredibly helpful is to find a support group around that issue. So a support group around dementia or a support group around Parkinson's, if there's a specific thing, because it's so wonderful to have people who know what's happening, what you're going through, for you to see what can happen. and learn. You just learn from each other how to help yourself.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think many of you have had a person in your life who you have tried to encourage to go get some professional care. And sometimes people are really resistant to doing that, so finding a way in, as you're suggesting, can be really powerful. Robin, how does fitness play a role in socialization? You've already talked a little bit about this, but share more about that.
Exercise and socialization. So in the settings that I have been in, whether that be in the community center, at the J, or at the place where I work out, there's who's an early riser and works out at the gym early in the morning? Okay, I see some hands going up. So sometimes you're not ready for that verbal communication early in the morning, but you have your earphones on and you're there at the gym, but guess what? A quick head nod to the same person you see every day at 6 a.m. Just that I'm not alone. So that social connection just happens by not through verbal, just by being there and through listening and watching. But I guarantee you when you disappear for 2 weeks, people are saying, hey, have you noticed that person's gone? So that care comes out as well. Other ways like social connection is made is oftentimes in these settings, a group exercise class, you are helping the teacher set up. You might walk up to the teacher and say, how can I help set up? Throughout the class again, you're clapping for someone or you're saying, my balance is awful, and the person's gonna say, you got this. And maybe even at the end, that social connection happens again. At the J, there's beautiful stories that are emailed to us. I'll share one, which is during COVID, we closed down, and a member just recently said, hey, I agreed with so-and-so that we would go out for lunch, but I forgot to get her number. Can you share her number with us? With me, and so we went to ask her if it was okay, and she said absolutely, and she ended up sharing a story that the J or a community setting of any sort has really helped her socially connect with other people. And there was a group of women who met on a weekly basis, 6 of them, outside at the J. They had their coffees, even during the cold days, they showed up. And it was just a way to leave the house during a really difficult time. And this is also a great time to suggest that, like, when there is crisis, it is a great time to also remember that you are here to have fun. I know that's very conflicting. You're here to have fun and to also love and to enjoy life. We think that because of difficult situation like caring for someone, that means that we have to turn into a machine and just be hard and go hard. But my parents have struggled to come to America, and what has helped them is to love each other and to find moments to laugh and to connect. And so maybe that means going through a difficult workout together and just saying, we're gonna get through this.
That's great points. All right, Rebecca, there are a lot of people moving here to the Austin area for jobs or for family, and they may not have a network of friends or community to lean on. What should they do? What can they do to prevent feelings of isolation in a new place? Besides join Impact Austin.
We need to put our big girl pants on. And by that, I mean we need to be proactive and find a group of people who are doing what you like. And that could be bridge, mahjong, pickleball, okay? Like pickleball. There are all different book clubs, and book clubs are everywhere. Volunteer. And one of the things, I just remember we moved here 30 years ago for 2 years, and we are still here. But I remember thinking I was only going to be here 2 years. I made friends with the people around me, which in that regard were my neighbors, asking, who's your dentist, who's your doctor? Asking people to help you get assimilated in the community. And you never know when that person turns out to be your best friend going forward. And so I think we have to take the bull by the horns. I also think in a new community and nobody knows you, that's refreshing sometimes, because you don't bring your baggage with you. Try something new. And there are all kinds of opportunities to do that. Again, I say, be proactive.
Great, great advice. Each of you probably has a story about that, about when you moved to a new place and what you did, and you can think about those and try them again if you end up in that situation. All right, so now I'm going to ask each of you a question. I want us to shift a little bit to thinking about the fact that we're talking about connection, but that doesn't mean that alone time isn't an important piece. Loneliness and aloneness are not the same thing. We've already established that. There are people in this room, and probably right on the stage, who are more introverted or do, we all like solitude. So if your cup is filled by alone time, how do you prevent becoming lonely? Hillary.
I made a list. I said join a gym, go to an exercise class, at a gym or seniors activity center, join a community choir, take a class, volunteer for an organization whose work you like, offer to hold babies at a hospital or a daycare, mentor a young person, join or attend a synagogue or church, mosque, or non-affiliated faith organization. One of my patients who was starting a weight management program, and we were talking about her diet, and she said, you know, on Friday, every Friday, my friends and I get together, we go to each other's house and we have a potluck. And I said, you absolutely go and you eat that potluck. You get right back on your program the next day. And I thought that was a wonderful way of her keeping connection with her friends.
Lovely. Robin, what would you say? How do you, if you're a person who appreciates their solitude, how do you avoid becoming lonely?
I am an introvert, and so my job requires me to show up for other people, and so at the end of the day, I want to just decompress. And then a lot of the sports that I choose to be part of is alone. So running alone, I do run in group setting, but oftentimes run alone, meditate alone. And so I find that this helps me in the world where I do connect with people, because the quality of who I show up as during my alone time, it's not about how I perform. It's not about who you think I am. It's me allowing to fill my cup based off of who I really am, which is like quiet, reserved, a little boring, it might be a word, but so it allows me to, really take care of the qualities that I need to then show up for everybody else. So that it doesn't matter how many people I connect with, but it's dropping into the moment and seeing you for who you are and being vulnerable with you and really connecting. So the depth of it helps.
Thank you. Rebecca, what would you say?
And I think we'll do Q&A so my brief response is, I am an extrovert, hard to believe that, but I do enjoy my alone time, and the way I keep from being lonely is I turn on music when I'm alone and sing at the top of my lungs. I'm beautiful. It's awesome. I also will pull out a scrapbook, for those of us who know what those are, a handheld, and look at old pictures, and it brings up happy memories.
That's lovely. That's lovely. We're about to start some Q&A. I want you to be starting to think about your questions. I'm going to add a little bit from my own thoughts around how do I think about not becoming lonely. I'm also an extrovert like Rebecca. I know that's a shock to all of y'all. But I do enjoy my solitude. And when I'm alone, I think about the fact that I am alone, and I sort of savor that space. And I have some signs and signals, and you may each have some of these for yourself, of when I need some people time. And I think it's useful to have those sorts of cues or clues to your own experience of when do I know that I'm feeling a little depleted in my human connection thing. And I live in a neighborhood that has a lot of foot traffic, so I have noticed, particularly during the pandemic, when I was alone a lot, that was a little too much for me. So I would just put on my jacket, or maybe not if it was hot, and just go out and take a walk and see people. And that was a way to help me not feel lonely, because I would think, oh, there's a whole lot of life bustling out here. And then I would get a little bit filled up, and then I could go back in my little house and be alone again. All right, we are going to take questions. We want to make sure that somebody's monitoring the chat box on the Zoom room. Great. All right, who has a question for us? We would love to hear from the folks in the room. A question for one of our panelists, please. We have Jaden going to be a runner.
My question is, when you oftentimes we'll see maybe an injury, a broken shoulder from a fall or a hip, and then that person can no longer do the things that they love to do. And then when they sit, it feels like out of nowhere, we see their cognitive decline significantly because they're not out doing what they love. How do we help them pivot if physically they can't do garden or play pickleball or whatever they were doing to keep them socially engaged? How do we pivot them in time to not lose everything else?
All right, I'm going to give the mic to, you're going to give her, but then you're going to take it back because you might have an answer too. All right, be thinking. Hillary, start.
Well, I think it's a great question. I would say that sometimes we think that we're limited when we're not as limited as we are. So I would say that I would say exercise is a good thing. And I know you said somebody who's got a broken something, but there are other parts of their body that may not be broken. And so I think that there are some great, for example, chair exercises that can be done. There's lots of senior programs that do chair exercises. You can, because that I think is one of the ways that you do it is by staying active. But most people can do some sort of something, whether they're just moving their leg or that's a squat, right? If I'm on a wall, that's a push-up. So I think there are ways that one can continue to have their body move. Since you brought up the hip, I think one of the most important things that we can do is prevent ourselves from falling. Because that does often become the beginning of the end. And so I think that there are a few things that you could do to make sure that you and your loved ones don't fall. I ask most of my patients these questions. Do you have any loose rugs in your home that you could trip on? They need to go. Do you have handrails on all of your stairs? And if you don't, you need to put them in.
Do you use them?
And do you use them? Yes. Do you have something to hold on to at the toilet? Because most of our falls happen at home, most of them happen in the bathroom. You have something in your shower or your tub, whatever you use, you have something at your toilet. This cabinet doesn't work when I'm falling. You have to have something to hold on to. We talked about doing something for balance every day. I think those are the things that I'm...
Great. Robin may have some additions.
My, hello. So that comes with like psychology as well. So I worked in a clinical setting when people would show up a day after surgery or before they have to get surgery because you need to strengthen it before you go to surgery because there will be a period of rest. So it's important to get support, and it's important to also accept the phase of life that you are in, which means slow it down, but that means also that one step at a time you will be able to gradually increase the intensity and the duration and come back to who you are with help. And that actually takes some vulnerability to say, like, I can't do it right now and I need your help. So these individuals need to reach out for help. Don't be afraid to do that. We all reach a certain point in our life where we can't do it without each other, and that's why we're all here today.
Great point. I do think that that idea of help-seeking behaviors, being able to ask for help, is something that is also factored into loneliness occurring. People are uncomfortable asking for help, and then they don't have people in their lives to help them navigate. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna add something which is like, whether you play pickleball or you garden and that was your identity, it hurts so bad to get injured and to not do that again. So all the caretakers, all your families, all your friends, that support and just recognizing that that person needs my support right now is really, really powerful.
great point. Other questions? Yes.
I just wanted to add.
Hold on. We got a mic coming to you. We are using our mics today so everyone can hear. It's an accessibility issue that's important.
One of the things that is always said is to be careful of rugs. Okay, here's something nobody ever thinks about. It's the blanket on the end of the bed, or the bed sheet, or something that you can get tangled in and cause a fall. And this is really important for people who can't see well, because they don't even realize, and they'll turn and they catch their feet and down they go.
Thank you.
So,
That's important.
just to know.
That's important. Okay, we have another question over there. Go, Jaden. She's getting it.
Well, you just mentioned that accessibility is a barrier, and it is because I actually work for a nonprofit that provides transportation for older people. So you have discussed a little bit about going to the gym and going to facilities. So we know transportation is a barrier for so many people. So can you talk a little bit more about some coping mechanisms for older folks that are not able to leave their home as often?
It's a great thing. I know that from my work in social work and aging, transportation is one of the key challenges, particularly here in Austin. We have, our transportation system is not well connected, and we all rely on our cars, and we get to a point where people aren't going to be driving. So I'm not going to answer this question on my own, but I think our panelist, Hillary, do you have anything to add on transportation? Or not, I mean.
Is it transportation or things that you can do that don't involve transportation that you're asking about?
Just ways to help cope with mental health and the loneliness. From home.
That's what I thought, okay. Well, I think if you have access to online resources, I think there are lots of things that you could do. For example, for exercise, when the gym was closed, there was a yoga by Candace that was an online free thing I did for 20 minutes every morning when I was working on my balance, when I couldn't go anywhere else. I guess online is probably...
Yeah. One quick thing from Rebecca, and then we're going to close off our...
I was just going to say, make friends with technology. That's your entrance to the outside world, and some people are afraid of it, but that would be the first step.
Thank you. Well, we have had a fabulous time chatting with you all. Thank you to our panelists and to the audience for joining in.
All right, everyone, we're going to take just a couple minutes break. We're going to try to make up a little bit of time from this morning. So if you want to just take just a couple minutes to grab another cup of coffee, run to the restroom real quick, and then we'll get started with our second session.